Actually, one of my friends, he had asked, have you ever met Andrea Fisher? I'm like, no, because when I see her work online, I just see everyone else is just so perfect and on the dot. Then he goes, no, let's go over there. So he came to pick me up, and we came over here, and she goes, I bought one from you one time, and I was like, I don't remember ever being here. Then, so she had bought one piece from me. She goes, let's just see how well it does. That Saturday evening, I got a call, and they told me it was sold. And Andrea told me, and that's what I like. It's when pottery flies off my shelf that way. Okay, these are our gourds that we have to shape out the pots. Simple board, and that was made for myself for mending the pottery together. And this is the ground up clay, the rock form clay. This is the pottery shards that is then added into the clay for binding the pot together when it has the water in there. These are the whole pieces of the shards. These are our base bowls that we use for building our pots, to mold them in there so that they don't fall over. These were my grandmother's. So actually, no, it might be able to be scraped right now. It comes from our clay mine back home in Acoma. We have a mine there on the south side of the Pueblo. And it's actually in a cave. And it's a dangerous place to get it to. The cave is probably only like maybe 2.5 feet wide open, and with a 5-foot rock on top of you. When you crawl in there, there's no way to stand inside. So it's just
you're on your knees,
on your stomach really to pull it out.
Is it wet?
It's wet when it goes. It's not like mud like this. It's just that the rock is really damp. Yeah. It's actually a dark gray, and then when it dries, it fires this light gray. With me doing this, it's just really thinning out the pot so that it's thin-walled. Most of my all my pots, I should say, have thin walls on them. So, it's just typical Acoma pottery, and that's just what the Acoma pottery are known for. This is a corned beef can. The lid of it. Remember how you take it off with a key? So that's what. Yeah. And then it sharpens as you go, and then you can see that it wears out. And when I was younger, when I first started really learning to scrape my pots, they were kind of thick, too afraid to really get down there to thin them out. As the years went on, it just got to where they started getting thinner and lighter, and you just gotta know when you're scraping it, it kind of just lets you know how thin you're getting. Because you'll go like you're hearing it now, then when it gets thinner, you can actually hear it. It just sounds kind of like glass. You'll hear it as I'm going on. It takes a while for it to really get thinned out. Actually, my style kind of just stayed the same. The painting kind of took a step back a little bit with me working with the collections. With me was that I was able to handle them, able to, really come together with them, the pottery that are there, and I was also given that permission to use some of the old Acoma designs on my pottery. So that's, like I said, I kind of took a step backwards, and which is good for me and I want to keep it that way where Acoma pottery kind of stays traditional old style. That's me. Others can want to go forward and make the tiniest, smallest little squares, little circles, little diamonds, everything. For me, I want, as you can see, to keep it all traditional, with the old work on there. I just think back to, everything that I saw there, and like I said, it really touched my heart, seeing all those pots there and how for me, I was wanting to build the most perfect pot, but seeing them on how they were just built, just made, and you probably see that they were kind of lopsided or pushed out more, and I'm like, okay, that's real, that's traditional work right there. So that's just where, I still try to, keep my work, the same, but there's times that, I do push it out and I don't bother it, I just leave it, and that's what a lot of people like is when there's that kind of offness to it, where it's not perfect, All my designs that I have there, that you see there on my pottery too, are from my grandmother. My grandmother had passed them down to her daughters, and her daughters are all no longer living. So, and with me, the only one in my whole family, immediate family, my sisters, I'm the only one that ever picked up the skill of making the pottery. So, it's just, they told me, since you're the one that picked it up, might as well just keep everything that mom had, So, and also, my mother was the one that taught me how to do this, showed me. I kind of just learned by watching her, watching every step she did. I never really had her sit down with me to say, do it like this, do it this way. It was just from me watching her when I was a kid, And with me being curious one day, I just asked her, can I? At first she told me no. Actually, she told me no. And then she looked at me and she goes, well, let's just see how well you've learned. And that pot sitting in the back, that's the first one I did. So, the painting's kind of funny, but just throughout the years, it's gotten better. The bird was when the Spaniards came to Acoma. It was a foreign bird to the women there that did the pottery, and they wondered where the bird came from. So with that bird, being around the village area all the time, the women then drew something up to make it look like that bird. And now that the bird that Acoma is known for, the Acoma parrot pot, that's what they call it. And with that, the bird is a very special bird to us. He brings us strength. He has a very strong spirit at Acoma. It makes that person that does that a lot stronger, lets people know he's there, she's there. This gives them overall strength. That's what the bird represents. Because when you're using the sponge, when you're smoothing it out, some of the little pieces of the shards come back to the top because you're wetting it back over again, and all you're doing is just pushing them back into the pot, and they stay into the pot, as you can see. I kiln fired them. I did do the outdoor firing there for a while, but it tend to get really risky with outdoor firing because if you want to have 10 pots, you got to build at least 18 because the other 8 then will explode in the firing. Explode, crack, or just won't fire at all. The slip comes from our home back at Acoma too. It's on the side of the mesa. You can just pull it off the wall, nice. Yeah. But you still gotta, drain it, crush it down with your hand or a hammer or whatever. As you get the sticks and little rocks that come with it, because it's gonna have to be clean, to apply it onto your pot. I have 5 sisters, and I'm the only brother. And me, how I think I picked it up, it's just me being around my mom a lot. We're like this. Everywhere she went, I went, Everywhere I went, she went. So when I was younger, sometimes if she was too busy, I would just ask her mix the clay for me. So then I'll build her pots for her, and then I just tell her paint them. And there'll be times too that I help her painting when she was gonna get ready for a feast day or for things back at home that we would prepare for. I did help her out that way. And I know with her, if she was still here with us, she would probably be sitting on the side of me, talking about the clay and everything. And we would have probably eventually become like how my Aunt Barbara and Joseph Cerno are, one kind of a team working together. It's a yucca plant. I dry the yucca. I chew it down to a fine where it's like really bush type. Then I just nip the tips with a scissor and just thin it out. This is the bee weed that we add into it. This is a wild spinach, and the leaves are picked off the wild spinach and then boiled, brought down, taking out all the juices off the wild spinach. It's then brought down, boiled down to a like real thick syrup, poured into a corn husk. Then it just hardens as a candy, and when you mix your paint, that's what you add into it.
Okay.
Then it just makes the paint stick on to the
Okay.
pot when it fires. But once it sets on into the paint, it's gonna come into the middle of the bowl, and you're gonna see the dark brown in here. Then that's when you just mix it up. And all you're doing is just basically rubbing the rock back and forth, add a force to where you're gonna get paint off. Yeah, you got to really, actually, really have a lot of force for something to come off. Because, like I said, these are just solid rock, and nothing's gonna come off right away. Just adding the pencil part onto it, then as soon as I'm done, then I'm gonna get the put the design onto it with a paintbrush. I've kind of already decided like what I wanted to put on it back at home just when I was building it. And there's times that you have your different shapes go with different designs. So it's just kind of I don't know, just came up in my head too. So I have a design already picked out for it. So I was telling you that when I'm building pots, there's times that designs just pop into my head, and then I gotta try to remember that. You can start, but that's just the main thing you gotta have is patience. All of it's patience, from gathering the clay to mixing the clay to mixing your paints to building your pots to actually painting it. That's the whole part of it. And then the clay, like I said, is Mother Earth, so she has a life herself. So she knows if you're meaning well with it, if you're just out there to play around, make money and go buy drugs or whatever, it's just not gonna work between the two of you. With myself, I take care of my family. She knows that I'm meaning well with her also. So it's just all takes part with everything. Back to the shards, you just don't know when those pottery shards were made, and then you have history into your pot. I was telling the lady before, because the pottery shards that I have there, I don't know when those pots were made. They could be made back in 1100, 1200. Because Acoma has been around for a very long time. They date it back to 1100. Like the ones I have back at home, the pottery that I haven't finished. When I get back, I'm gonna continue using these. And then when I finish all of these pots, just throw them outside. Like I said, the yucca had a life. We thank the yucca again for offering himself to us to use him for our pottery, and just put it back outside and let him go on his spiritual journey wherever the yucca goes.